Troy, what do you think about ETFs and equality for all for Rashad's campaign?
Well, I hear the analogy. I think it's there's slight flaws in it, only because yes, they didn't win a championship, but these guys still performed at a high level, right? So like even a KD is still the first or second team NBA player. Kyrie is all like these guys are still performing, and so those stocks still could perform. They're not the stocks that have become all-stars and now they don't perform at the same level. So yeah, it's stronger together, but you could still get wins, right? So everything's not going to be Nvidia, but there might be an Amazon, right? Yeah. We talked about Meta, like they can perform individually, but the safer thing I think more is obviously the ETF or the index. So in that sense, yes. I mean, how many champions? There's only going to be one champion if we're using that the sports analogy. I don't want to. Oh wait, I have to have Nvidia. If I don't, then I didn't succeed in investing. Now you can find companies that perform at a high level for a long period of time. So the 20-year, like LeBron, 22-year All-Star, AD, Kawhi, like even Kawhi in a certain sense, like he's still going to be All-Star, he's still living. There'll be companies that perform. They may not have championship performance, but would you take 15% gain over the course of a year or 20% gains over the course of 3 years? You take that. It's not going to be the 300 and whatever percent Nvidia's up now, but these are the type of wins that you have. But yeah, I think fundamentally, if I'm looking from a standpoint of what's the safest play, yes, I'm looking at ETF. Yes, I'm looking at indexes. It gives me sector specific. Obviously, if I know sectors, that helps, and I know my interest in these sectors, that helps. And obviously, the indexes is just over encompassing everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you don't win the playoff game, that's a bad jaunt. But they say in Philly, that's a bad jaunt.
Who didn't win the playoff game?
Kyrie went in Boston.
Are you serious or a game?
He didn't play.
I'm just saying that's a bad jaunt. So what I'm saying is this: like, coaches got fired. I love Kyrie Irving. I love Kevin Durant. I mean, we just got to be honest, though, right? Like coaches.
But did they perform?
If a coach gets fired, that's a bad jaunt.
Yeah, the coach is going. That's inevitable. Coaches are getting fired.
Not if you're winning.
Yeah, they do.
Not if you're winning.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
that's a bad choice.
No, ask Adrian Griffin in Milwaukee how that worked out. He was 36-13. He lost his job.
Big facts. Hey, Doc Rivers, goofy ass. He fired Doc Rivers, y'all.
They were underachieving
at 36-13.
Oh, Doc Rivers did worse.
He had the number one. You're not underachieving. You had the number one record in the Eastern Conference. You lost your job to a guy that underperformed at his job. Actually made you 500. He lost his job, and he was number one. So I'm saying, like, the players.
That's a professional dirty Mac too, to be the consultant for the coach and then to get the job.
The Brooklyn Nets had Kyrie Irving, they had Kevin Durant, and they had James Harden.
Yeah.
Right. By any metric, as a sports fan, by any metric, did they underachieve or no?
From a sports standpoint, I'm not denying that. I'm saying from an investment standpoint, because
I'm only looking from
they definitely ARKK.
I'm looking at it from a GM standpoint, right? If you're a GM and you spent a lot of money, you have to see if your team has overachieved, if they've hit expectations, or if they underachieve. It's only three things that you can do.
No,
right?
It's not. Let me interrupt you for a second, because what you're saying is from a team standpoint, right? But in the course of that, was KD an All-Star?
Yes.
Was James Harden an All-Star?
Yes. Team, they didn't help the team win. They underachieved.
Only one team is going to win. That's what I'm saying. Only one team.
They underachieve enough.
Of course. That's not even. That's
crazy. They were
the biggest underachievement jobs in the history.
If I was a GM and put out that, I mean, they were still all stars, but the expectation was like get to the finals.
Of course, right. But that's the same expectation right now of the Nuggets, who didn't. Right? They were the favorites to win the championship. They didn't. Was Jokic still the MVP?
That was bullshit too. I don't know. Yo, the boy in Oklahoma City should have got that one. I don't know who he upset.
He didn't win. He had it first.
When you're a GM of a team, if you're the owner of a team, your priority is not to see if your players are going to make the All-Star team or not. Your priority is to win games and to sell out arenas and to reach the highest levels. But anyway, AMD. Let's talk about AMD.
Let's do it.
Yes. Oh, poor baby. Oh, poor baby.
Don't do poor baby. Don't do poor baby yet.
AMD. So everybody's talking about NVIDIA. We all know the story behind NVIDIA. We're going to talk about that shortly. But AMD is actually at 166, which is around $60 short of its all-time high, right? Yep. So they're far below their all-time high, where a lot of other stocks are at all-time highs. So a lot of people are looking at it from a standpoint, okay, NVIDIA's run has already happened. right?
Yep.
They're at all-time highs. They're, the biggest story in the stock market. So where can I see potential gains, right? AMD, the CEOs are actually cousins.
Yeah,
which is wild.
AMD, another chip maker, another company that has had, tremendous success over the past 10 years, but has not had, stock market success over the last 6 months. So they're looking at it like, okay, well, AMD is a place where I could potentially see real gains, right? For people as opposed to investing at top. So AMD, is this an opportunity to actually make some real money?
Yes. But the thing is, I've been in AMD since 2016. Almost the entire industry is at the top because NVIDIA has drug up the entire sector. So we got to wait for a pullback. If AMD got to like 146, I would be happy for sure. Love AMD, but the big issue is with the 10-for-1 stock split, it makes NVIDIA cheaper. And they were asking on Stock Club, like, should I sell off AMD and now go to NVIDIA? Well, even though they're technically a monopoly that operates with two different cousins, they operate in two different sectors, serve two different audiences. So my thing has always been invest in the top two in the sector. I would say that AMD is not in the top two. Troy, this is why I will lean on you on the TSM. TSM is much better for sure. So just because something is cheaper does not make it better or have more gains. I fear that probably 10% of retail or 20% of retail investors that are in AMD are definitely going to leave post June 7th and pile that money into NVIDIA because it's a better company and it's cheaper. And this is why I always told you, never compete on price. So now you have a better company with more fanfare that hedge funds love more and retail loves more. It's cheaper than your stock. Now, I'm sure Jensen called his cousin, said everything's going to be okay. Can't wait for them to announce whatever partnership they're going to do. But competing on price is a mistake. You definitely can get some gains out of AMD. They will be shorter. You can get 20 to 40% return on AMD. But by far, NVIDIA for sure is hands down number one in that space. I would then look at TSM and ASML after that to get a secondary position. And if you're in AMD already, just continue to hold.
Okay. Fair enough. I don't say poor baby. I think everything you said is legit. The 10-to-1 split of NVIDIA from a retail investment standpoint makes sense because, yes, the number is going to come in smaller than what AMD currently trades at. But this is something we've talked about, again, since inception in 2021. I believe, what month is this? November 22nd of 2021. Its all-time high was $154.
Yep.
Obviously, we saw what happened in 2022 where the entire NASDAQ pulled back 30%. NVIDIA was $55.
Yep.
$55.
Right.
At this point, I think this is when I was telling everybody get 1,000 shares of a company. AMD was one of the companies that I got 1,000 shares in. That has gone up over 100%. So even now in 2024, when it got up to 200, great. It has a pullback we've seen over the past couple months down to 166, which is great. I think when we talk about 1 and 2 in terms of semis, yes, TSM, and I spoke about it last week, and if you invested last week, you're up 9% on the stock. Whatever you did in the options game, great. It is important. I put it, if it's not in the top 2 or 3, it's definitely in my top 5.
Yeah.
At one point, you would say NVIDIA and AMD would be 1 and 2. I know
at one point they were. Yep.
Super Semi has come in, and we can't deny the rocket ship that has been on. But I put it in there. ASML, I talked about some of the issues that it may face in the near future. But I think from a standpoint, if I'm looking at who's producing the highest level of semiconductor, these are the 1 and 2s. I think these are the 1s and 2s, right? And the price point issue, I think, is where it could have some revenue growth. Whereas NVIDIA, we already talked about the GPUs being anywhere between 30 to 40,000. Yep. I know Blackwell's coming. We'll talk about what that is in a few. That product is somewhere in the price point of 30 to 35,000 per GPU. So that's very expensive. If you can come in with a product that is efficient at a lower price point, again, you're not the premier brand in the space, but if you come in with something that is affordable, you
grab some market share.
You can grab a little. I'm not saying that you're going to take all the market share, but there's a potential for revenue growth inside that market share at a price point that makes sense for some of these mid to small tier cap companies, right? Like everybody's not going to be Meta and just come out and say we're buying 300,000 of your GPUs. There are going to be some mid-tier companies that won't be able to afford that price point, but need a product that can be as efficient. I think AMD can, if they structure this correctly, if they have a product, if they have the rollout in the right manner, I think they can be in that number 2 spot for those mid to small tier companies. So I don't think it's poor baby yet. I think that there is some space here in the semiconductors for them. So I still like them. I'm a thousand.
Me too. Only reason I said poor baby is because retail investors were saying, well, they pretty much are the same in price.
Right.
Some capital is going to leave there. They're going to go to NVIDIA. Then NVIDIA is going to shoot up to 300 again or 400, and then the money will go back into AMD. Yeah. It's still cyclical.
It's still a great company. It's still a great company. And I think it's still part. We talk about leadership, and obviously strong leadership, but we talk about the AI economy. Like they all fall encompassing of it. NVIDIA is the darling of it, the star of it, but there's plenty of companies inside that if you're in them in the right time, there's definitely some growth potential.
Absolutely.